With Team of the Season just around the corner, if you guys need FIFA 23 coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the best formations in FIFA 23. It's definitely still the most popular in my opinion. I see a lot of people using it, and that is the 4-3-2-1. Now, just before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new, as well as turning on those notifications so you never miss out on any new uploads. But with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, I like to have this on balance. This is the same as always with every formation, and I like it because it gives you the most control. You know, when you need to apply pressure and start pressing your opponent, you're able to do that, and when you want to drop off and be a little bit more passive, you're also able to do that. So it does give you the very much needed control, especially against those higher end opponents. Now moving on to the width guys, I have this on 42. There's not really a specific number you need to use for this, but you know, I suggest anything between 40 and 50. Now 50 would be a little bit wider with your defensive line, and then 40 would be a little bit more narrow. I like to go nearer to 40 because I like to primarily cover the central areas of the pitch and be as compact as possible, because that's where all the danger is. But at the same time, when somebody does try and go down the wings, we're also able to get out to them and cover those spaces. But if you want to have a bit more coverage of the wings and sacrifice a little bit of that compact nature in the middle, then you can up it. But you know, I'm just using it on 42. Now moving on to the depth guys, I'm using this on 57 at the moment. Again, it's not really a specific number. Anything from like 55 to like 65 I'd say is good, but the reason I'm using it on 57 is so we've got like a nice balanced defensive line where we're not always getting pinned back by having a super deep defensive line, and we're not going to get through balled all the time either by having a super high defensive line. So it's kind of nice and balanced, where sometimes the defensive line will be a little bit deeper and other times it's a bit higher up the pitch. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I suggest using this on balance because it is the most controlled and the most consistent with all types of FIFA 23 gameplay you might experience. What I mean by this is FIFA 23 gameplay is obviously very inconsistent. Sometimes you can have fast gameplay, other times you can have slow gameplay, laggy gameplay. There's so many different types you might experience. Now balanced is the most suited for all of them. Fast build-up would be good if the gameplay was quick and responsive, but it very rarely is, so I suggest using balance for the time being. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. Now the reason for this is it's the most meta option in the game. It makes your attackers bunch up against the defenders, meaning you're able to do those really overpowered isolation plays to really work those chances. Players also make those extra movements in the box to give you that extra passing option, so you can guarantee those goals with those sweats. If you don't like direct passing, you can use something like forward runs, which pushes your team very far into your opponent's half, but just beware, when you lose the ball you will get counter-attacked. Now moving on to the attacking width, again this isn't really a specific number, I'm just using this on 44 because this is a narrow formation and we want to primarily attack in a narrow way because it is a more narrow formation. Now we have it on 44 as opposed to something like 30 because we don't want it to be too narrow to the point where our players are like sat on top of each other, and we don't want it to be like too wide either, otherwise it feels like a 4-3-3. So I'm kind of just going with something like 44 and it works really nicely. Now moving on to players in box, I have this on 4 so we can get some players into the box to create those chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, we have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. Link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the striker position, because it is a one striker formation, I suggest going for a player that is quite balanced and can do a bit of everything. This is because you have to compensate for the fact that there is one striker instead of 2 in this formation. So you kind of have to get all that balance that you would get in 2 players all in 1. So just go for a nice well-rounded player, somebody that can do a bit of everything, like with shooting, dribbling, passing, even shooting on either foot, just so you get that balance all in the one player. Otherwise you're a bit one-dimensional. Moving on to the two, like the forwards, the right forward and the left forward, or the 2 centre forwards, whatever you want to call them, you need these to be good winger style players. These are players that are going to have pace, good skill moves, good dribbling, good passing, good shooting. It's important that these players are very good winger style players, otherwise you're going to struggle to create anything, as these are like the main playmakers, the main outlets. So you need these players to be good, otherwise you're going to struggle a lot. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, we use a more box-to-box style centre mid. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend for us, so you're going to want somebody with a high work rate if you can get it, so you get the maximum contributions in attack and defence. But if you can't get that high work rate, don't worry too much. Just go for somebody that is nice, well-rounded, and has a very well-rounded card. Moving on to the middle centre mid, we're going to use a more defensive-minded player. This is somebody that is going to stay back and break up the play for us, so you're going to want somebody with really good defensive stats, and if possible, somebody with a medium-high work rate, so you get the maximum contributions in defense and they're not too bothered about going forward. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, you're going to want to use an actual attacker here. This is because this player is not actually going to play in a centre mid position. This will make sense in the player instructions, but just go for a really good attacking player, so somebody like Mbappe, Neymar, anyone like that. You don't have to worry about them being a centre mid. Moving on to the left back and the right back, I go for a balance between the two, where I have Roberto Carlos in the left back position, who's a bit more of an attacking minded player, somebody that will contribute on the attack for us. And then in the right back position, I've got Cafu, who's a little bit more defensively sound, but maybe lacks that attacking ability. That's just something I like to do. You guys don't have to do that if you don't want to. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be as good as you can get them. There's not much to say about them. Now, moving on to the player instructions, guys. On the striker, we just have him on stay central, and then we leave everything else alone. The reason we have him on stay central is because we don't want him drifting off into the wide areas, otherwise we don't have a striker in correct position all the time, you know? We want him to be in those central areas, so he's always where the striker should be, and he doesn't get a little bit lost on the attack. We also have him on mixed attack instead of getting behind, so he's not always super one-dimensional, because if we put him on getting behind, we're just limited to things like through balls, whereas if we have him on mixed attack, sometimes we can use him to get more involved in the build-up play, and you just get a lot more out of the player. Now, moving on to the right forward, we have him on stay central and getting behind. We have him on stay central because we still don't want this player drifting off super wide, otherwise it becomes more like a 4-3-3, and we don't really want that because it is a narrow formation, so we want it to keep it through the middle when possible. But when we want to take him out wider, we can just do that manually and run him out there, so we just keep him on stay central by default. As for attacking runs, we have him on getting behind because we always want to use this player's pace to get in behind and really break through the defensive line, maybe making it easier to create all those chances. It's probably like the only player I like having getting behind on, to be honest with you. Now, moving on to the left forward, we actually have him on comeback on defense and default settings. Now, the reason we have him on comeback on defense is so it actually makes this defend in a 4-4-2. The reason we defend in a 4-4-2 is because it is the most defensively sound formation in the game, in my opinion. You can defend narrow and wide at the same time, and you've just got really good coverage, and it's very difficult to break down. So come back on defense on this left forward means he's going to come back to defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, we have him on completely default settings and cover centre. We have him on default settings because he is a box-to-box player, so we don't want to restrict him all that much, and we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Moving on to the middle centre mid, we have him on stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box cross, and cover centre. This is the more defensive-minded player. We have him on stay back because, of course, we want him to stay back. We have him on stay on the edge of the box across because let's say he accidentally gets taken forward with a run. We don't want him to commit into the penalty box, we just want him to stay outside. And then we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Now, in the right centre mid spot, where I said you guys should use an actual attacker, we have him on get forward, get into the box across, and most importantly, cover wing. We have him on get forward because he is an attacking player, so we do want him to commit to the attack for us. Get into the box across means he's not going to hesitate to enter the penalty area and get involved. And then cover wing is super important because it means he's going to defend as a right mid in the 4-4-2. So the way this team's going to set up is the back four will be the same. My left mid would be Di Maria, my left centre mid would be Pogba, my right centre mid would be Jorginho, my right mid would be Chiesa, and then the two strikers would be Keane and Jairzinho. So that is how this works. If you don't have this player on cover wing, it will not work, okay? Now, moving on to the fullbacks, on my left back, my more attacking minded fullback, we have him on balanced attack and overlap. This is because it is a narrow formation, so sometimes we need to add extra width. So like with my more attacking minded fullback, we put him on the overlap run type with balanced attack, so he does make the overlapping runs to add extra width and give us a wide option. It works out really nicely. Now, my more defensive minded fullback, we have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back while attacking, so we always at least have 3 defenders back, and then we have him on overlap because let's say I do trigger a run forward with him with L1, we want him to make those overlapping runs instead of running narrow. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah, guys, they're my custom tactics tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-2-1. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you're notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.